Dr. Mark Hitchcock here, dispensational futurist. So he holds to the dispensational futurist false eschatological system. One of the things that this teaches is that the Antichrist is to arise only after a mythical pre-tribulation rapture and only during a mythical 7-year period of great tribulation. Of course, taken from a fallacious interpretation of Daniel 9:24 through 27. But the question that arises with dispensational futurists all the time, and they admit it, that Christians are asking them this question about where is the United States in Bible prophecy? Where is the United States in Bible prophecy? Of course, the United States is right here. It is the earth beast, the beast that rises up out of the earth. At around the same time, the sea beast, Revelation 13, verses 1 through 10, receives its deadly wound at the end of the 42 months, also known as the 1260 years. Notice Jonathan Edwards. The time when the reign of Antichrist began, according to Jonathan Edwards, it is certain that the 1260 days, 42 months, time times half a time, or years. See, Jonathan Edwards and the rest of the Reformation writers and post-Reformation writers recognized that we need to use the day equals year principle when looking at the 1260 days, the 42 months, the time times half a time. And when we do, when we look at the 1260 years and the day equals year principle, we have to ascertain when did the Antichrist rise to power. And as Jonathan Edwards rightly says, this 1260 years did not commence before the year of Christ, 479. And what he means by that is that the Antichrist did not arise until after the fall of the Roman Empire, which was technically 476 AD. He says 479. That's not a big deal. But he means after the fall of the Roman Empire. So once the Roman Empire falls in 476 AD, not long after that, the little horn of Daniel chapter 7 would arise. The sea beast of Revelation 13, that's what we were just looking at. They're the same entity. The sea beast in Revelation 13, 1 through 10, is the same entity as the little horn of Daniel chapter 7. The little horn is said to continue in Daniel chapter 7 for a time times half a time. That is for 42 months or 1260 days. Jonathan Edwards and the rest of the Reformation writers who wrote on this subject said day equals year, 1260 years, before receiving a deadly wound. Okay, if we go to What Rough Beasts, I'm just going to go through this quickly. Daniel chapter 7, the four beasts that rise up out of the sea, obviously compare that to Revelation 13, 1 through 10, and the sea beast. But in Daniel chapter 7 is where we have this idea of beasts that rise up out of the sea. And we're going to see that these beasts are empires. They are four successive suzerain kingdoms. Now, a suzerain kingdom is a kingdom that has lesser vassal kingdoms underneath it, under its umbrella. So these are umbrella kingdoms that have lesser vassal kingdoms subservient to it. Okay, so we call them empires. So Daniel chapter 7, and I parallel that with Daniel chapter 2, obviously, the head of gold, the metal man imagery of Daniel chapter 2. The Babylonian Empire, followed by the Medo-Persian Empire, followed by the rise of the Grecian Empire under Alexander the Great, followed by the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire comes to an end in 476 AD. So when Edwards said that the 1260 years did not commence until after the fall of the Roman Empire, 479, he said, this is what he's talking about. The 10 horns that sprung up are the 10 lesser tribal nations that made up the former Roman Empire. I give a list of 10. Dr. John Gill, contemporaneous with Jonathan Edwards, 18th century, gives a Mede's list, very similar to my own. The 10 lesser kingdoms that made up the former Roman Empire. He gives Isaac Newton's list, Very similar to my own, except he includes the Huns. I don't include the Huns because they were a nomadic people, not a kingdom people. But I can see why he includes the Huns. But three of these horns would have to be plucked up by the roots before the little horn could arise to power. And again, once the little horn arose to power, it continued on for 1260 years before receiving a deadly wound. The three that were plucked up by the roots were the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. 493 AD, 534, and 538 AD. And we can go into the history of all these, obviously, but suffice it to say that all three of these kingdoms were Arian. They held to the Arian heresy. The Arian heresy was a Christological heresy in church history, which denied the eternality of the Son. The eternality of the Son. So at the doctrine of the Trinity, we say within the one being that is God, there exists three co-equal and co-eternal persons. Three co-equal and co-eternal persons, namely the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Arian heresy said that no, the Son in fact was not eternal. There was a time when the Father created the Son. Okay? So these were Arian kingdoms, and they were overthrown. And finally, in the third one, three horns plucked up by the roots. The third one was plucked up in 538 AD. If you add 1260 years to 538 AD, what do you come up with? Well, you come up with 1798. So Napoleon and the Catholic Church, this was part of the French Revolution. French Revolution, I gotta shrink it a little bit. There we go. All right. General Louis Alexandre Berthier marched into Rome, entered it unopposed, February 10th, 1798, proclaimed a Roman Republic, a sister republic of the First French Republic, and demanded the Pope renounce his temporal power. See that? That was the deadly wound inflicted. That was the deadly wound inflicted on the sea beast, the papacy. The papacy is the Antichrist. It wears the garb of Christ. It's Trinitarian. It claims to be Christian, and it is not. It is a betrayer of Christ. We saw James White, Dr. James White, talking about excellently how the Bishop of Rome actually claims to be the Trinity. He claims the title Holy Father, which is only found in John chapter 17. And it's Jesus' high priestly prayer to his Father in heaven, and he calls him Holy Father. For a man, the Bishop of Rome, to try to wear that title for himself, and for anyone to call him Holy Father, is absolutely blasphemous. Haughty and blasphemous words, a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words. Number two, the Pope claims to be an alter Christus. In fact, all papal priests claim to be an alter Christus, another Christ. Another Christ. And three, the Bishop of Rome claims to be the vicar of Christ on earth. The vicar of Christ on earth, when in fact, there is only one vicar of Christ on earth, and that is the Holy Spirit. So the Bishop of Rome actually claims to be the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay? Thrice-fold blasphemy from the Bishop of Rome. Betraying Christ, just like Judas was the son of perdition or son of destruction. So in 2 Thessalonians, the man of sin, son of perdition, is also called the son of perdition or son of destruction, just like Judas was. And Judas was the internal betrayer of Christ. Okay, internal. He wasn't an external betrayer. He betrayed him from within. And he betrayed him with a kiss of peace, didn't he? Rather than not a kick to the shins and a smack to the face. Judas betrayed Christ with a kiss, the kiss of peace. And Jesus even called him out for it. You betray the Son of Man with a kiss, right? The kiss of peace. And that's how the papacy betrays the Son of Man. with the kiss of peace by claiming it's Trinitarianism. That's not going to do. That's not going to, just because they're Trinitarian does not mean they are not Antichrist. They are absolutely Antichrist. It was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them for this 42 months, this 1260 days. So 1798, anyone is taken into captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword he must be slain. So Pope Pius VI was taken by military force. That's what power of the sword means. It means by military force. And Pope Pius VI was taken into captivity. Into captivity he goes. He took people captive by false doctrines, and he went into captivity. So, who then is this another beast that rises up out of the earth? This is the United States. It rises up at around the same time the sea beast receives a deadly wound in 1798, so latter part of the 18th century. This beast, world-dominating empire, that's what a beast means. It's not a single solitary individual human being. Beast means an empire. I got to stress this over and over again. A beast does not indicate a single solitary individual human being. This beast rises up out of the earth, a sparsely populated area. The sea beast rose up out of the sea, which means a densely populated area, an area of the world where there are multitudes of peoples, nations, tribes, kindreds, and tongues. This beast rises up out of the earth, a sparsely populated area, in around the latter part of the 18th century or 1700s. It starts out lamb-like, having two horns like a lamb. Look throughout Europe. All those nations in Europe, they were all heathen, pagan nations before they became nations and before they became Christianized. Not the United States. The United States actually started out Christ-like. It was a safe haven for Christians who were fleeing Europe, and England especially, and the persecution they faced there. So these were Bible-believing Christians. But it spoke like a dragon. It would eventually speak like Satan himself, which is, of course, what we see in our country today. It makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. The whole goal of the United States is to get everybody to worship the first beast by deception. By deception. It deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. See? Deadly wound having been healed ever since it was inflicted in 1798. The wound has been healing. It was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast so that it might cause those who would not worship the image to be slain. So this is about worship. Worship. All throughout here we have worship, worship, worship. It'll be something having to do with worship. The mark of the beast will be something having to do with worship and an image to the beast. And this, the United States, the earth beast, causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead. The earth beast is the one that enforces the mark of the sea beast. The sea beast, the Antichrist, does not enforce its own mark. That's the earth beast that enforces the mark on behalf of the sea beast. Okay? It's the Antichrist's mark of authority, but the Antichrist does not enforce it. That's the earth beast. So, when Dr. Hitchcock starts saying the United States is not in Bible prophecy, this is false. He's lying to you. This man is lying because he holds to this lying, false prophetic system, Dispensational Futurism, which is really a Jesuit system of both Francisco Ribera and then later followed by Robert Bellarmine. That's Futurism. Futurism came from the Jesuits. It was opposed to the Protestant Reformation. Now, do I expect Dr. Mark Hitchcock to know that? I don't think he does. I think he's ignorant of this. So he's deceived, but he's deceived in his ignorance. He doesn't know these things. And if he does know these things, then shame on him for rejecting the Reformation. But that's my point. Either way, whether he's ignorant or cognizant of where his futurism comes from, he's still teaching my brothers and sisters these falsehoods, errors, and lies. But let's listen to just a little bit of what he has to say, because he's going to say America is not in Bible prophecy at all, and whatnot.
We talk a lot about signs of the times, and there are a lot of signs that we discuss. Some of the major signs, I think, are globalism today. The whole world is shrinking, where it's easily controllable by one person, a one world government, a one world economy.
That's a good point. Globalism. Who are the perpetrators? Who are the inventors? Who are the of modern day globalism? Who? The United States, ever since World War II. The United States took control of all the oceans, namely the Atlantic and the Pacific. So you got the Atlantic, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. That's us. NATO is the United States. There is no NATO without us. And we took, of course, control of the Asia Pacific, or the Pacific Rim nations in the areas around there. The U.S. Navy is roughly 10 times stronger. Roughly 10 times stronger. The United States Navy, and he who controls the oceans controls the world. That's how it works. World trade and all that, nothing's going to happen without the United States. Okay? But our U.S. Navy is roughly 10 times stronger than all other countries' navies combined. Combined. That's how powerful our Navy is. And guess what? Our Navy is not ramping down. They are ramping up. Okay? We're retiring super carriers, and we're building new ones. New, bigger, better ones. So understand, United States dominance around the world, especially with regard to world trade, we're not going anywhere. That's how we control the world. The second way is through our dollar. The dollar, since World War II, has been the world's reserve currency, and it has only gained power over other countries. Other countries, if they want to trade, they have to trade if they want to engage in world trade, even with countries that aren't the United States, they still have to do the trade in the dollar. The dollar is the middleman for all trade, pretty much a large part of the world's trade. It's only going to become more powerful. Okay?
Just the exponential increase in lawlessness.
So globalism, my point is globalism is like they talk about a one world government and a one world superpower, all that stuff. Yeah, it's a one world American global government. That's what it is. It's the United States that reigns supreme. Not a conglomeration of 10 European nations in the end times and a revived Roman Empire or some such nonsense like this.
That we see in our country today, an insurrection, revolution. Obviously, the nation of Israel and the ongoing peace process that's there. I mean, it's a peace treaty that will begin the 7-year tribulation period.
No, that's utterly fallacious. A peace treaty? There is no peace treaty in Daniel 9:24 through 27. I don't know why these people have to lie so badly. Look at, he shall make a strong covenant with many for the 1 week, for the last week. This is Christ language. This is Christ, right? Covenant language is God language. Covenant language is God language. This is not a modern day political peace treaty. That's what these people want to reduce. These dispensational futurists want to reduce this messianic covenant, the new covenant in Christ's blood, as a modern day political peace treaty that the Antichrist will make with the literal nation state that calls itself Israel over in the Middle East. That has nothing. This prophecy is messianic and has nothing to do with the Antichrist. Antichrist isn't mentioned once in this whole prophecy. On the wing of abominations, that happened about 40 years after the last week was fulfilled in the temple destruction that took place in 70 AD. That's what the wing of abominations is here. The abomination of putting the Messiah to death. And by his death, in the midst of that last week, that final week, in the midst of that, he put an end to sacrifice and offering. Why? Because he is the fulfillment of all the temple sacrifices and offerings. He is the perfect fulfillment of that. That is Christ. Okay? So there's no peace treaty here. It says covenant, not peace treaty. Okay? I'm a covenant theologian. I have the most tremendous amount of respect for all the covenants of God. For example, the Noahic covenant. The Noahic covenant in Genesis chapter 9, where there's a group of people who have stolen God's covenant symbol in Genesis chapter 9, and have used it as a symbol of their own sexual deviancy and debauchery. Want to talk about shaking your fist at God? And that's my symbol, by the way. The rainbow symbol, that belongs to me as a Christian. If I see that anywhere in like public schools, if they're putting it up, I would be absolutely offended by that. Offended by that. And if your kids go to school where they're putting up rainbow flags at their schools and whatnot, offensive. Offensive to us. You should be taking your kids out of school. There's no way that anybody should send their kids to public schools. Anyway, any Christians, for that matter, should not send their kids to public schools. So goodbye. Let's see, 20 minutes in. Let's see, maybe a little bit more here.
I believe there'll be a reunited or revived Roman Empire, and I think that...
See? Revived Roman Empire. Nonsense. The Roman Empire never left. The two legs of iron in Daniel chapter 2 go right into the feet and toes of iron mixed with clay. Since 476, we've been living in the feet and toes of iron mixed with clay. Notice, iron, remnant of the Roman Empire, mixed with clay. That means that in the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 AD, it never really went away. There would always be a remnant of it in the world. And where does that remnant of the ancient Roman Empire find its home today? And found its home after the fall of the Roman Empire and has been there ever since. The papacy, papal Rome. That's where the ancient Roman Empire finds its home today. Okay? So there's no revived Roman Empire. This is nonsense. Futurist, Jesuit nonsense.
Possible today that the European Union is the embryonic stages of that.
No, they are not in embryonic stages of that. What are you talking about?
The whole Gog-Magog coalition, Russia, Iran, Turkey, these nations.
Gog-Magog has nothing to do with Russia, Iran, Turkey. False. This is such a false teaching. Notice, Revelation chapter 20. Let's go to Revelation chapter 20. I'm just going to do this. I forgot that he had mentioned that in here, so I didn't have it prepared. Revelation chapter 20. Right? Look at. Now, here's another dispensational futurist. That's this Robert Breaker. I have his because he lays out a nice chart for the dispensational false eschatological system that he holds to. Notice 7 years, part of the Daniel 9:24 through 27. 3.5 years, rather than 1260 literal years that the Reformation taught about. It's just nonsense. What was I going to talk about? Gog and Magog war. Okay, these people think the Gog and Magog war has something to do with modern day Russia, and that these men are premillennialists, so they believe in a 1,000 year time period. That the second advent kicks off the 1,000 years, and at the end of the 1,000 years, the final judgment happens. But here, when the 1,000 years are ended, then the Gog and Magog war happens. See? So the Gog and Magog war of Ezekiel 38 and 39, these people are reading that as a war to happen either before the rapture or during the mythical 7-year period of tribulation. And it involves Russia and Turkey and Iran. So when they see Russia coming up against Ukraine, they're like, oh, it's the Gog and Magog war coming. It's like, no. Look, Revelation chapter 20, the Gog and Magog war comes after the 1,000 years, not before it, when the 1,000 years are ended. And the response I typically get to dispensational futurists when I point this out is, oh, those are two different wars. Those are two different wars. And I just, you can't help the brainwashing of the dispensational futurism that has gone on in people's heads. You can't get them out of this. It's very difficult to do so.
That will conspire together to attack Israel that are all in place today.
The modern nation state that calls itself Israel has nothing to do with Bible prophecy. You people are digging in the wrong place for the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. You're completely misreading Bible prophecy, all because of your false system, dispensational futurism. And it is a futurist system, first promulgated and systematized as anything like a system by Francisco Ribera, the Jesuit.
We see the escalating apostasy within Christianity, the continued falling away that's taking place that I think the Bible predicts as a sign of the end. But one sign that
Well, that's a good point. So let me point this out. I think this is important. I'm going to go to Revelation chapter 3, just real quick here. The escalating apostasy in the church. Okay, well, I wouldn't say that, because the true church is never going to apostatize. There will be those who profess the name of Christ who are apostate, who later on they don't profess anymore, but they were never truly of the church, as John says. But here in the book of Revelation, we're talking about the church in Laodicea. This is the last church age. This is the church age in which we are now living. It's the lukewarm church age. Lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, so that you... Notice, I know your works, you are neither cold nor hot. Would that you were either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spew you out of my mouth. And the word here is literally, I will vomit you. I will vomit you out of my mouth. For you, and this is why. For you say, that is, you say in your hearts, in your minds, you are delusional in telling yourselves this. I am rich. I have prospered and I need nothing. Notice, I. Notice the egocentrism here, the self-centeredness of this Laodicean church age. And this is all Christians living right now. We are in the Laodicean church age. This is specifically about the church, not about unbelievers, about the church, the professing Christians, actual Christians. You say in your hearts, I. See? Me focused. Not realizing that you are wretched, you are pitiable, you are poor, you are blind, you are naked. Notice your total depravity, your sinfulness. That's what you need to recognize. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire. And when he talks about gold refined by fire, he's talking about doctrine. Doctrine. This is Jesus telling us, I counsel you to buy the good doctrine. To buy the good doctrine, so that you may in fact be rich by the good doctrine, the gold doctrine, the gold, silver, and precious stones doctrine, and white garments, so that you may clothe yourself, and the shame of your nakedness may not be seen. What does that have to do with justification? The doctrine of justification. Know the doctrine of justification. Be firm on the doctrine of justification, because that is where God takes care of our wretchedness, our pitiableness, our poorness, our blindness, our nakedness, is by the doctrine of justification. So we have to know the doctrine of justification. This is all about doctrine. And salve to anoint your eyes that you may see. Now notice this, in case you think of I will vomit you out of my mouth as being like, oh, we could lose our salvation. No, that's not what this is about. Notice, it's the church in Laodicea, and we know that the church, no one can take the church out of the Father's hands. No one can take the church out of the hands of the Son. The Father and the Son are one in the preservation of the church, in the preservation of his saints. So this is not, I will vomit you out of my mouth, is not, you will lose your salvation. Has nothing to do with that. Notice verse 19. Those whom I love, I reprove and discipline. If these words sound harsh, they are loving rebukes. They are loving reproofs. They are loving discipline. They are not meant to indicate that you will lose your salvation. They're meant to turn you back to repentance and faith in all the good doctrines of God. Buy from me good doctrine, gold refined by fire, white garments. This is the doctrine of justification. Have a proper view of the doctrine of justification, as opposed to the papal Antichrist, who Paul says is cursed because they teach falsely about the doctrine of justification. Paul gives a curse on the papal church because they teach falsely concerning the doctrine of justification. What else? Well, let's see. What else we got going on? I think that is it. So that's the apostasy in the church. No, it's the Laodicean church age in which we live. Are there apostates? Sure, but they were never Christians to begin with. But even the actual Christians who are in the church, it's the Laodicean church age. I will spew you out of my mouth because you're neither hot nor cold. You're lukewarm, complacency, and egotistical. I am rich. I've prospered. All these things.
We talk about it a lot, but I don't think we see it specifically as a sign. It's what I would call the reduction of America. That America is going to be diminished as we get near the end times. Well, why do you say that? Well, I think America has to be neutralized because America is not mentioned in Bible prophecy, which to me indicates that something has to happen to America before the end times take place. I don't think America is mentioned in Bible prophecy. It's certainly not mentioned directly.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay. So there it comes. There's the big lie. There's the big lie. America is not mentioned in Bible prophecy. It most certainly is. It is the world dominating empire for the last days. It is the earth beast, and it will cause all to be marked on the right hand or forehead so that no one can buy or sell. By the way, buying and selling presupposes a medium of exchange. A medium of exchange. And of course, it is the US dollar that is the world's reserve currency since 1944 in the Bretton Woods Agreement, and has only been gaining power, not losing power. It's only been gaining power since that time. It will only continue to do so as well. So, Dr. Hitchcock thinks that America is going to fall at some point. I'm saying, it's going to continue on to be the global superpower of the world. So, 30 minutes. I think this is long enough. I try to cram a lot in here, but this is what dispensational futurists are promulgating to their people, and it's false. It's this. You want to talk about the strong delusion of the end times? There's a strong delusion right here. Dispensational futurism. The other strong delusion is a high partial preterism with its postmillennialism. That's another strong delusion. But that's another story. Here at Dispensational Futurists, denying the United States is in Bible prophecy, and high partial preterists / postmillennialists will also have to deny that the United States is in Bible prophecy too, but for different reasons. But post your comments, questions down below. We'll talk to you soon. Soli Deo Gloria.